Thank you. Good morning. It is Wednesday, March 19th, and this is a meeting of the City Council's Public Health and Safety Committee. We are here in the Holiday Building. Let's call to order and have committee members introduce themselves.
Christina Valdivia Alcala, District 2.
David Banks, District 4.
Deputy Mayor and Councilman, 5th District, Brooke Kell.
Thank you, and I'm Karen Hiller, District. The events that's coming up through Changing Our Culture, and we'll switch gears a bit and focus on the City of Topeka's homeless strategy for most of our meeting. And for that, we have City Manager here, and we've got a good array of staff. Thank you all for being.
See that on number 4 is where there is going to be the discussion of the City of Topeka homeless strategies. And I want to say this before everything starts. I was a little bit disconcerted at this showing up on the agenda for a couple of particular reasons. One is that I did check with a couple of, I checked with myself, and I hadn't received any emails. I think that there was one other committee member that had received. He had talked with you about it, that he had said, well, yes, discussion would be warranted. I am troubled when I look at this agenda, and it seems to me this agenda has been changed to include possible an unsheltered population, where over the past 5 years there has been so much more movement than there ever was before, is something that support any votes coming out of this committee to be sent on to the governing body. And that would be because for 5 years, and the way the optics look of this is that all of a sudden we're going to have presentations and then we might have possible actions. I'm not sure if that's coming because of outside pressure, inside whatever it is, politicking that may be happening, but it is not a common sense approach. Some organizations and agencies that want us to be moving quicker on this. I also believe that this is of a crisis enough proportion that this should stay before the governing body for any kind of votes. So if this wants to be presented to the governing body, to me, it is a bit irresponsible to be trying to load up with all kinds of presentations, then go into discussion. The staff has been doing. I think we need to be treading lightly in this realm and not just putting it on this committee to see what we can do with it. Thank you.
Thank you for raising those issues. I put the possible action on there just because it seems to be a typical form when something's coming through, but certainly, again, I put it on there just because it's standard, but I didn't expect it today. These are big issues. And I share your concern. That's why when I talked to the city manager, it was like, we are not getting things on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or homeless done. Would it help to get something moving at the committee level so we can chew some things through and see if something committee has been grabbing this homeless thing, so put it on the agenda. And the staff has been doing a lot of work and has put some presentations.
Work. Again, I am stating, for 5 years, everything has been going through the governing body, the full governing body. I believe personally stay. So if the governing body is the one that has been looking at this for 5 years, or can it go before the governing body to then for to me this is rather hijacking.
Yeah, if you can give me just 1 second, I'm pulling out my governing body rules and I'm looking at committee rules. Generally, there's a little bit of flexibility. Give me 5 seconds. I'm almost at that spot. That the committee would like to discuss, the governing body does not have to take up actions from committees if it's not something they.
If you say yes, then I'll abide by it. I'm just asking.
The rules are a little unclear on that. So
The attorney.
no problem. Sorry, I'm not there in person.
Thank you. Good conversation. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Sitting here and listening to some of the conversation, when I got the agenda and looked at it, I saw the possible action and I underlined it because I did not understand that we would be taking a vote. So I thought this was heading toward a vote. And for the short time that I've been on council, we've always did the voting there. I think that for the sake of continuity, I think a vote, if we were going to vote, that vote should be one that takes place with the entire governing body. It should not be the 3 or 4 of us deciding on the strategies. I think the presentations are great, but for us to move toward action, I would be hesitant to do that because I know this is going to step on somebody's toes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And again, put the possible action on, right or wrong. Didn't expect anything today. What typically happens is if an item is worked in committee, then that committee can choose to simply, anybody can see what the discussion was. If the committee chooses to make recommendations to the governing body, I've never been comfortable. We have a couple of places where our committees can make decisions in committee and it doesn't even go to the council. That's pretty rare, and maybe it still shouldn't even happen on those, but never expected that this would be decision-making in this committee, but instead an opportunity, all 4 of us representing districts that have homeless issues, and that it has been stuck so that we could kind of get some things started and hopefully get some wheels turning to not only help clarify what we see our role as the city in these various things. That seems to have been, and it didn't get out till Monday. I had thought about sending you an email earlier and then kept thinking it was coming out. So.
Director of PMU had discussed the Lou McGinnis cases. I just wanted to speak for the record and let this committee know that yesterday 47 sanitation cases went through our courts, and we collected a little over $61,000 in fines for the trash issues that were experienced towards the end of last year. So I just wanted to highlight that, let this committee, I guess, share that with this committee, and then also give kudos to our teams who went out and stepped up and cleaned up the apartment trash, and then also to our legal teams, both the courts and the city attorney's office, to see these cases through. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. So no correction to the minutes, just an update from them. All right? Yes.
Thank you. Just on that thread, I think that is, where's Director Chardine? Good job to your crews, to the courts, as I said yesterday. And I think that we know the battle that's ahead of us, because the article that he is the largest property owner in Topeka with $144 million in property. So I think that you understand what's ahead of you. You know that you can come to me for any assistance, and I think we know what we're in right now. So thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, kudos. Good work, everybody. With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. We have one item under changing our culture of property maintenance. Director of Community Engagement, Monique Glaudet, gave us a presentation last month about both the Yard of the Month campaign as well as community cleanups, and she wanted to touch base with us briefly on proposed duties of the judges and judging panel members. So we have, if you look fairly, probably 2/3 of the way back in your packet, you have a handout from her.
Greetings, Madam Chair, committee members. Just wanting to take a few moments to give you a couple of updates, and we're only speaking of the Yard of the Month program this morning. One would be the timeline. The timeline has been decided upon from April through September. I'd ask you, though, please to think that my recommendation is that we start in May of this year, only because the judging panel hasn't been identified. Looking on, the chair asked me to give some recommendations and some thoughts to what panel members would potentially be good choices for this, and so I've listed that on. I think there's number 1 through 10 listed. I'd like to ask you to potentially think about the Keep America Beautiful Executive Director. I think that'd be a great potential member as well. So something else for you to add, and maybe that would be option number 11 for you. My recommendation is that there'd be an odd number of judges, possibly 3 to 5 or 5 or 7, but keeping that in mind as well, leaving that determination up to you. And just provided you with some potential duties of the judges. I think it's really important to share with them. It sounds like a lot, that looks like a lot on paper, it really isn't. It's really speaking of being, making sure that they're being fair, giving them some ideas of what to look at as when they're looking at potential yards and looking at the criteria, but wanting to ensure that they understand that it's probably something that will take 15 or 30 minutes a month. It's something that definitely that Nicole will be able to administer and have that conversation with, and I know that she's not here, she got pulled out into a Tyler meeting. But that's just some information to share there. And then the last thing would be on the scoring form, we removed the seasonal decoration category, so that only leaves 7 categories there, and we added the score total at the bottom. So I would like to ask if there's any way that the committee could possibly schedule on their agenda for next month that the judging panel discussion take place, so therefore we could start in May. And I know that Director Garrett, I'm not sure if he had any information this morning in regards to the marketing, but a marketing plan has already been created. We would like to have at least a month to be able to market the program prior to any judging taking place. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I guess I wasn't sure, let me lob this across from me, but maybe for the committee as well, that we needed to be involved in all the intimate details of exactly how this thing runs.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
So, and certainly don't want to hold up the start of the program in a timely manner. I thought that when we talked about it before, that there was discussion of just 3 judges, but there also, it was sort of up in the air as to whether it would be the same panel, since there would be judging all the way through the season, or whether it would switch around.
Sure. So the number of judges is definitely at your discretion. I just provided some recommendations. I'm totally fine with 3. If you want to switch it up every month, this would be the decision of the committee.
Well,
just
on the
provided
other
the
hand,
framework.
you're the one that's running this in terms of the consistency, whether it matters, if it's this same people or the same categories each month and things like that. Councilwoman.
I guess I'm confused, Chair. Are you saying that you want us to have whole of it, or are you saying you want Monique to do it? I'm confused.
If I could step in, Chair. Yes, thank you. So we'll basically take the reins on this as staff. I think this is a great update. I think the question, who would be selecting the judges?
That would be the committee. I don't think that I should or my team should select.
And if you would like for us just to take the lead on that, we can do that as well. But I think this is an opportunity for committee or council to recommend some community leaders or folks within the community who you would like to see as judges. Obviously, we can take the lead on that as well. But I think this is a question as far as does this committee or does council want to take the lead on identifying judges for this program? But as far as all the other details, we can certainly run with it. This is probably just more guidance from the committee and or council as to who would be envisioned as the judges. 3, 5, 7 doesn't matter to us. It's just really a preference from the governing body.
Well, it's a lot to manage. So I really,
And Chair, if there's no thoughts or anything like that, we'll totally take the lead on that as well.
My thought would be your adults, well-paid, imaginative, know people in the community, are psyched about this. I have every confidence in you.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
yeah, I do think that the list, we did some brainstorming at an earlier meeting. I think the list represents the variety that people had come up with. Councilman?
If we're going to make a recommendation on numbers today, I would say 5. And I think that the committee should be tasked with, if not locating the members, at least having some conversation about who those members are.
Do you think we could task ourselves to simply have a look at these 2 documents and send some comments to Ms. Glaudet within a week, or do we need to talk about it in a meeting?
I think we could make the recommendations and get them to her. A week seems to be okay for me.
Okay, does that,
What are we okaying? Just the names of the individuals or going over the 2 documents?
that we would give any comments or names, suggestions to Monique within a week?
Of the documents or the names or both?
Both would be appreciated.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So just take a run through the duties of the judges. We did not end up with the updated scoring criteria in our packets.
Matter of fact, I can
So if there's some copies, that'll help, and then we'll all have them. Send one to Brett. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so this is all 3. Great. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Well, if we've settled on the fact that we would then set ourselves a deadline of giving her suggestions of names and any comments on the variety in the list, you've got a recommendation of a committee of 5. So a week from now would be, let's say, noon next Wednesday. Unless somebody thinks we need to vote on that, we'll just call that a consensus and move forward. That's, next Wednesday is the 26th? Okay. Comments and names by noon Wednesday. Thank you so much for all the work on this.
You're most welcome.
Okay. Well, you are also welcome to stay unless you're not part of the homeless team. I know
Thank you.
that
I'll
we've
leave
had
it to
lots
the
of department people involved in the homeless team. Well, let's go ahead and move to item number 4 and get a presentation and some discussion going about where
Madam
we
Chair.
are. I'm sorry?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
with the concerns that my colleagues have, and not to kind of waste everyone's time on this, if we do want this pushed to the governing body, that we just kind of skip this and have this presentation at the governing body.
The issue was the intent was to get some work done on it at the council level before it went to the governing body. There are various other pieces in motion as well. It seems like it's been stuck. Do you have a problem with it being in the committee? Or can we go ahead and get it introduced here and get some discussion going?
I know that the committees are what kind of help get things pushed along and things, but I know one committee member already said that they're going to abstain, and I'm not sure about the other one. But so then we're almost then I don't think really pushing anything through. And as the committee members mentioned, this has kind of been a full governing body issue to work through and kind of have their input on. Pretty much since I've been on the council. So I'm not sure if this is an issue that we need to work at the committee level at this point, unless the governing body kind of sits there and says, okay, hey, let's put it in the committee and start working through things there, or if they just want to keep it full governing body.
Well, again, I don't expect any action today. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely send this presentation on to the rest of the governing body so that they make sure they have it.
Sure. I mean, with introducing it here, there may be some questions or things that we can raise that can help make that presentation more complete or more effective when it goes to council. It's one of the things that committees do, get the dry run on things. Councilwoman.
Deputy Mayor, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm still going to say that right now it's saying there's not going to be a vote, but then I hear verbiage, we need to push things through. So my sense is that the chair may have it in her mind that it is needed to be pushed through only through committee because not enough is being done, and that's my opinion interpreting what she is saying. And from my understanding, there is a lot being done, and I have asked the city manager to give us more consistent updates at the governing body level so we can all be kept abreast, and so we're not all having separate meetings with staff and taking up more staff time. And so I'm just going to say I'm very ambivalent about where this is going. And I believe it is a way to try to rush things that we don't even have a sense financially about where we are. So I would have a tendency, Deputy Mayor, to agree with you. And you are correct. I will be, until we can get some kind of authorization or okay from the governing body, some kind of comprehensive report to the governing body of exactly where we stand, along with financially where we stand with what we are trying to achieve. I think that it is folly, and I think it is short-sighted, and I think that it is, it's just not good. It's not good form. So I agree with you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Well, staff has the homeless point in time for us today, has some financial information, and city manager has put together 4 issues that he thinks we can begin to start working around for getting some decisions made. So
I don't understand what that means. Please explain that to me.
everyone's here with a presentation ready.
I get that. But decisions
manager.
made.
No decisions made.
You just said for possible decisions made.
His role is in warming centers and so forth. Obviously, we have briefed. I guess there's been individual briefings of like the all hands on deck to the governing body. Again, I think you've seen how our agendas are pretty stacked right now, and so I think that obviously this is something that we will be briefing the entire governing body on. I think that it would be very helpful to get thoughts from this committee, as the chair mentioned, to actually strengthen the presentation once we take it to council. And so I do not anticipate, and this is just me, I don't anticipate any decisions coming out of this committee, but what I am hoping to get from this discussion is, hey, just some thoughts, and again, as we move this forward to the governing body, that we've actually done some work with this committee, I think would be helpful. So that's just my 2 cents for this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so just to kind of kick things off on how we got here. So Carrie and I were asked to put together a overview that talks about some of our existing services and programming, and doing that from a 3-year snapshot. So what we did is we pulled numbers from 2022 through the end of 2024 as it relates to these slides ahead. I do think that, just as being a strong supporter of my department, it's important that when I hear narratives about not a lot of things, or nobody tackling homelessness, or nobody taking that, I know everybody's divisions or departments handle that from a different lens, and plays a different role when it comes to the puzzle of how we help solve this and help provide services to the community. But Housing Services specifically has 18 employees that either directly or indirectly, day in and day out, are doing nothing but focusing on how to support the community, whether that be through homeless prevention or direct support to unsheltered population. So the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is certainly a piece and something that's now moving forward, but had its own challenges. But as far as homelessness, there's definitely a dedicated, focused lens on that from Housing Services Division and several others across the city. All right, Carrie, do you want to jump in and kind of talk through the first couple slides, and I'll pop in?
Yes, absolutely. So this slide, we're looking at the homeless initiatives and programs that we have. Over the past 3 years, we've spent roughly $8.2 million on those. And then if we look at just 2024 numbers, it was roughly $2.8 million. And then if we break down what we spent in 2024 by Fund 7 and grant funds, that covers programs such as Shelter Plus Care, HESG, part of Impact Avenues, and our KDAD. All over. That includes some of our programs and services such as EAS, part of Impact Avenues, and then social services. And then we also wanted to include numbers for what we consider homeless prevention. So these would be our rehab and repair type initiatives and programs that help to keep individuals in their homes. So over the past 3 years, it's been roughly $14 million that we've spent on those programs. In 2024, about $3.7 million of that was in grant funding, so that covers all of our big grants, our home grant, CDBG, and other and HUD grants that we receive. And then it includes about $1.8 million in general funds, which 1.7 of that is the DREAMS program. And those programs for rehab and repair that we consider homeless prevention are things like emergency repair, weatherization, accessibility, the TOTO program. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on those programs because we have a con plan presentation that will be before the governing body on April 1st that covers that funding source and these programs in more detail. So more on that to come. And
yeah, so I'm going to suggest that we skip this slide for now. We will come back to it, but I think it involves more parties that you might have questions of besides just Carrie and myself. So we can skip this one.
Okay, and then we wanted to briefly cover some of our current programs that we have in place that work with unsheltered individuals. One of those is Equity Access Shelter, which is a single point of access for anyone that needs rent or mortgage assistance. So this streamlines the process. It makes it easier for anyone that needs help to get assistance. It also allows us to do an assessment with everyone that scores their level of need so that when the agencies do have funding, they let us know. As we pull those referrals, we pull based on those scores so that we can ensure we're helping those with the greatest need first and foremost. A second program is Impact Avenues. This is a program that follows the collective impact model. It is a partnership with over 41 different agencies. It works with McKinney-Vento homeless students and their families. So we provide 12 months of intensive case management. We have a one-stop shop that meets weekly with all the partner agencies to reduce barriers for families, to get them connected to services and wraparound services while reducing as many barriers as possible. We not only work on getting the families housed, but addressing the issues and barriers that led them to being unsheltered so that we can ensure that they, once they're housed, they can sustain that long term. And then our Shelter Plus Care program it's a grant-funded program. It works with chronically homeless individuals who have either a severe mental illness, a chronic substance abuse issue, or AIDS and HIV. Supportive services or treatment. It allows them to work on that piece and become more self-sufficient and stable and still stay housed at the same time. Then we have our HESG grant, that is the Hearth Emergency Solutions Grant. That one operates a little bit differently. We put out an RFP to the community and social service agencies can apply for the funding. It will go towards either rapid rehousing, which that is first month's rent and deposit for an individual that is unsheltered and looking to get into a home. It can go towards homeless prevention, which would be individuals that are housed but at risk of being evicted and need a month's rent payment in order to stay housed. Or it can go towards emergency shelter expenses. We have our KDADS Boundary Spanner position. This is a collaboration with KDADS, Kansas Department of Aging and Disability. This individual is housed here at the city in Housing Services, and they work with individuals in nursing facilities for mental health that are ready to discharge and move back into the community. So they help them get into housing and help them get supportive services set up so that they can be successful as they reintegrate. And then we have our social services grants. These, again, all go out to social service agencies in the community. There's a wide variety that will apply and receive the funding. Overall, it goes to assist our vulnerable citizens to minimize crime and to optimize success. Back to this.
All right. So this slide here, I worked closely with Josh in finance to help pull these numbers. So what we were able to do is John Chardine, I'm not sure that he's here. Okay, thanks, John. You can feel free to jump in if I misrepresent any of your data. But John Chardine had shared with me that his team had been tracking their costs since 2023.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So while the rest of our slides were 3 years of data, this is just 2 years, but that's what we have, and we know these numbers are accurate to our knowledge. So this breaks down the total cost of the 2 years worth of abatements of all of 2023 and 2024, as well as the total amount of hours that were spent on that by staff across several departments and divisions. And so then this also breaks down WPC's portion of that. It goes into TPD, property maintenance, and then public works as well. So yeah, this is really, it's not a piece that so much falls into housing services, but it was a part of the presentation. So if you have questions, John might be better suited to answer those, or I can try.
Stewart's here as well. Captain Stewart is here as well. That she may be able to answer some questions.
Go ahead. Thank you, Chair. Abatements are continuing, correct? We know that they're continuing, and I know that there had been some discussion. I think, Chair, you had felt, am I correct, that the abatements should stop? Was that correct?
I haven't said that.
Okay. I thought that that's a discussion that we had had. My bad, apologies. But I think that there is some concerns that I have heard about the cost of the abatements overall, and if it should be better to let the encampments stay, where they are. And I just wanted to give you two feedback, at least from my district, is that is not the case. My constituents understand that it is their tax dollars that are being used for the abatements, but as we know, especially with the really immense encampment on the north side. What side is that of the Sardu Bridge? What are we working on right now? Is that the north or south?
That would be the west side.
The west, okay, the west side. Got it totally wrong. The west side, they have been adamant with wanting that cleaned up and the deep concerns about the river and public health and safety. So, are you guys hearing anything about that? Like, why are you guys doing the cleanup when they're just going to end up moving somewhere else? Are you hearing any of that chatter?
I think that that's a narrative that if we, you know, when we're able to hear everybody, we hear just about everything. So that is definitely an opinion of some. I don't think it's the opinion of many. But yeah, that's something that comes up from time to time. But like you said, I think that there's also people that have understood that the opinion of cleaning up the north side of the river between the Kansas Avenue Bridge and the Topeka Boulevard Bridge were successful. It's a visible area, and I think that they've been able to maintain.
When these encampments are cleaned up, there are services that are being provided. So it's not, you know, there are notices as required by law. There are the services that you all provide. So it's not some random swooping in that is cold of heart. It's a very long process to get these encampments cleaned up. And I think that individual. So I think that this is some kind of tension that we felt for the past, we felt it the whole time. We know that it's been there. And I think that you guys have done a really good job. And I am definitely a proponent of continuing able to get that housing and the wraparound services to get them in. So thank you.
And council member, if I could just add on to that, I think part of what we wanted to do yes, there's a lot of services that the city does provide to try to prevent people from becoming homeless. And then on top of it too, as we continue the cleanups, that we've adjusted some of our processes to include, instead of just a 2-week notice with our partners, it's a 30-day notice that we've with the public as far as to help with our homeless population.
Well, then I would say to that, I'm still going to agree with what Deputy Mayor Kell said, that this committee meetings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
So on the cost, okay, excuse me, what is the main reason why we do the cleanups? Is it because of the?
So first and foremost, we take care of the campers, the people. We provide.
Where are we spending our money, and where is it best? Because for instance, my thing is, I know a lot of stuff that might cost us $12,000. And I'm still about let's get them help, let's get this thing going. But are we spending our money in the right areas and on certain areas that we need to maybe look at different? And stuff happens sometimes, but everything else has been great from the groups all south, that we maybe look at some avenues that maybe help more long-term cost savings.
Valid. Certainly something that we'll continue to do. Fearful a little bit about some of the idea of enabling people to stay in the camps and encouraging them. I think the fear from staff is that by placing a porta potty, I think that might kind of contradict our efforts a little bit. But I definitely think there's merit in evaluating the way that we're going about it and seeing if there's cost savings, or if we could be more effective and efficient, is definitely something we're always thinking about. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for that. I realize there's equipment, there's this and that and the other thing, but we may want to look at those numbers a little bit more. We all know that is a challenge, but on the other hand, if there are some success stories that can help frame the picture perhaps. Yeah, let's finish the slides, and then the last slide is the four focus areas that city manager had and the team had recommended we look at, so we can get to that for sure.
Before we get there, I think we do want to
The city's role has, it's shifted, it's grown, it's changed a little bit over the past couple of years as we navigate warming centers in our community. But in general, our role has always been to assist and support, not really play a lead role in the organization of these, as it falls slightly outside of our core services. So we've been able to partner with community partners, the Rescue Mission, SENT, several churches, other organizations who really take the lead on those efforts. I will say, as it relates to this presentation's kind of odd, right? On site daily at those warming centers, generally for 2 to 3 hours, having a person that sits and does intake. So we understand that that population might be a group of people that have not interacted with the shelter, but underneath extreme bring our services forward and help them understand what programs that we have in the community. This year specifically, as we start to look at, there's been a shift of some of where the centers are located at. So I will say our partners have been very thoughtful and very diligent about reaching out to the city, which is extremely important from a planning perspective and a fire safety perspective, that they share with us their proposed locations. So that on the fire side and the planning side, that we can do a thorough review and make sure that a temporary approval would be appropriate for those locations, just based on just life safety and just general location when it comes to planning, understanding the zoning, the impact it may have to neighboring properties. And then Public Works this year specifically, with all of the 14 inches of snow that we received, making sure periodically checks in with the warming centers. They're constantly engaged with at the encampments and assistance in that way.
Let's go ahead and cover the topics and also your point in time count, so that we've got an idea of where we're going with homeless.
A decrease in many years. We did see a trend. While the total number of individuals is down 12, otherwise fairly consistent, we saw a decrease in the number of unsheltered individuals that correlates with an increase in the number in transitional housing or emergency shelters. And I think that's a great testament to the fact that as we have more housing available, individuals will that can utilize, which has allowed the number of unsheltered individuals to decrease. Any questions on data?
Knowing who has added units, there's not much sharing when we talk about this as to, we all say there aren't enough, we all know that. But the fact, where those units have emerged, where you're placing those certificates, I didn't know that Cornerstone had added units. That's really, that's strong information for the community stepping up, for one thing, but also just encouraging for everyone.
Yeah, if you look at on the actual press release that went out versus describing or the Cornerstone has been adding units over the past several years. In January of 24, we had 58 individuals in transitional housing. July of 24, it went up to 75, and then this year, January of 2025, we went up
Of change for that.
They also partner with several other grants and housing services, and so we have several different partnerships with them to help increase that housing.
Yeah, and I think I've requested, or maybe I have it on the.
So doing both here, but we're working on that presentation. My plan is to take that in April to the policy and finance. Funded dollars, and in that presentation we talk a lot about, okay, so yeah, sure, we're spending this much in this program, but what does that equal? It equals this many houses, it equals this many people getting services. So we're throwing a lot of information at you, and it may feel a little scattered, but we'll find a way to bring it all together, and just know that you're about to receive a ton of detail.
Well, that's great to hear, because I know I've been talking with you about just doing what I called affordable housing, you know, and kind of showing where it is in the community. But on this line where it says individuals in transitional housing, you know, knowing whether those are permanently available transitional units, if it's Cornerstones, for instance, rather than whether it's, you know, there's enough activity on your end that it's like, well, we got these certificates and we're placing people out in the community. And so a first assumption might be it's just willing private landlords, which is great. And if that is most or all of where those certificates are going, but if on the other hand we're building up some reliable long-term stock that is owned by nonprofits or churches or whatever that is always going to be available, that's really good information. Okay.
534 individuals total, which is 390 olds. You can see on the graphic up there the breakdown of the different races. It is, so out of the 534 total, have some strict rules and definitions that we follow. So for this count in particular, we don't count anyone that would be like couch hopping or in the Shawnee County Jail but consider themselves homeless. It is strictly individuals that are either unsheltered, in transitional housing, or at an emergency shelter.
Yeah, and I guess the only other piece of information I recall last year was the first year that we did a count in July, which I think was helpful, right? We know that people experiencing homeless interact in different ways in different climates, right? So I think that our thought was that there July when the was a little more favorable to be outside, and there was an increase. I was pleasantly surprised that it was not as large as I thought that it might be, which is good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is just accurately represent as best as possible the true and full number of people that are experiencing this, because until we are able to secure that number, then we don't have a benchmark to be able to work against to become closer to being built for zero. So I think that's really our purpose in this, is to be as accurate as possible. Well, these are our numbers for now, and then of course in July we'll be going through this process again, and hopefully it takes us a couple weeks, as you can imagine, with 40 volunteers to make sure that we have everything accurately represented. So hopefully end of July, early August, to be able to release an update on the numbers as well.
Good.
Are you reading anything or getting any information nationally that is forewarning that the numbers could increase for homelessness because of what we're going through right now as a country?
I think that's the concern. Last year, numbers were at an all-time high nationwide. It's hard to know what the totals will be for this year, but I think people are expecting an increase.
And is there any additional, I mean, you guys are doing everything you can, right? You know that you're trying to get data, good data, good data, good data, especially for the Built for Zero program. But as we start going through the next 4 years, I would think it would be extraordinarily helpful if you can, utilize even more community solutions built for zero, before we, the whole thing gets constructed, because I'm sure that they would have loads of information that would be anticipatory in nature of what may be coming down the pike and how communities prepare if, again, they're still working on the affordable housing part of it and the wraparound services part of it,
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think that everybody who works in a realm that involves federal funding right now is asking a lot of questions, and I think that the best thing that we see as a potential for that is to continue to work through community partners, community groups, programs that we have like Impact Avenues that are strongly supported by the Topeka Community Foundation and Advisors Excel, leveraging our partnerships to figure out how to, it was always a big, it's always something we pat ourselves on the back of, being able to be so highly grant funded. It also puts us at a large risk because a lot of these grants are federal HUD grants. So just being very aware of that, and we're trying to think of other ways that should that funding no longer be available, how we're able to still be able to sustain a portion of our services. So just being strategic, trying to work it from a grassroots approach. These are things that we're thinking about daily. So
And I think also it makes me think of, the private dollar component of it. And I know that's, I don't know if we've done any research, or maybe somebody did do research. That was a Jump Woman last night, but that was with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I wonder if there's any research that's been done about how corporations in the city, that is talking about and trying to build something up like a Built for Zero and needing more dollars, how much corporations that are not usually being tapped into making ventures out towards them for the need, coming under public health and safety, community livability, all of that, because we know that there are a lot of large corporations that utilize the workers here in the city and in the county. And I don't know if to me, they seem like an untapped resource. And I know that may be kind of shaky ground to go out and venture in that realm. But I think it has to be part of what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, surprise. I mean, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but we do that all the time. Where we've got a couple partners that are really strong, but we know that there's several people that partner with other organizations across the community. And while it's certainly not meant to be their sole purpose or even a majority of their purpose, I think the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee, I think that's a really good way for us to be able to leverage relationships outside of, it's one thing for the city to come to you and to represent our services and what we do, but to be able to have, different community leaders, poverty advocates, people from the business community, to be able to build that confidence in what we're trying to accomplish, I think will help us be able to leverage new funding mechanisms, which will be.
Yeah. Good job.
And Councilwoman, part of the last bullet on the last slide has to do with the different puzzle pieces with regards to the private, nonprofit, public sectors, as far as what everybody's role should be and how we fund some of these solutions, whether it's the Built for Zero, all hands on deck, and so forth. So you're definitely right on point as far as at what level should the city be participating, at what level should the private sector be participating, and the nonprofits as well. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. Thank you.
Thank you. In a funny way with this conversation, all the kind of concern up in the air about where federal grants will go, on the one hand makes everybody really nervous. On the other hand, it opens doors for conversations that, and we have companies here too, to Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala's point, that are part of bigger companies nationwide, certainly strong local companies, but also some connections and some things we may look in places we never looked before, or some things may open up. Yes, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to comment how important this information that we're getting today is for us to be able to pass on to the rest of the community, because I think we get a lot of chatter about what's happening to the unsheltered, or it's just going to get worse. And some of these questions or some of the information that we're given today gives us the ability that when we talk to different groups, we can give them some optimism about what might happen, where we're going. Because in many cases, the lack of the information from you guys to us doesn't get to them, so they start to think we're not doing anything. And I just want to say how much I appreciate it, because they want to know what we're doing. And I know you guys can't get out and talk to individuals like we do. I mean, they call all the time. I saw a homeless guy in my trash. I've had some break into my vehicle and take stuff. But this information gives us the ability to show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're at least working toward it. So I appreciate the information. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
We have put out there about Built for Zero, right? So I think what a lot of people are wondering is where Built for Zero is at. I don't think that they understand. I don't think the governing body understands in total, you know. But I don't think that the community understands the process that has to be gone through to get to that point. Even if some of it looks ugly, even if some of it looks like, Jesus, this is going to take forever, I think that we would be better off if we could have, and you know, I always say, you know, the presentation tight to the point that a 7th or 8th grader, you know, could understand and doesn't get all lost in the weeds. I mean, we know we get lost in the weeds as council people. But I think it would really, really behoove us if we could do a small presentation tight that lets community know what it takes to get Built for Zero off the ground. Is that going to be one of the ones you're planning?
So one of the things, Councilwoman, I love this comprehensive approach, actually, and I think that we can spend time on Built for Zero, but I want the community to know the totality of our homelessness efforts. It's not just Built for Zero. It's not just encampment cleanups. It's everything that we're bringing to the table. Right. And so I'm taking notes, and this is great feedback for when we do come to council to actually provide more details on some of these programs. And so, yeah, we'll make sure to highlight that as well.
Staff and city manager have brought forth and just help to process what we see the pieces are of those issues and the questions that people do have, and what might be the clearest way to present it so that we all have the same information. You know, we're spending over an hour on it today. We don't do that in council meetings, you know, and if we need special time, that's fine too for the full council. But if we can work these, if these are the 4 places we should focus, and the data, so that we can help make it just as complete and as easy as possible to communicate, if that's our contribution, and we can get started. We've started on that today, and it's going to take more time than just today, but if we can help you by asking those questions or sharing the kinds of things that we're getting beat on about or whatever it is, we know you're working hard. I know when I first saw the list, I said, you know, I probably need I'm not even sure I know what a Topeka First initiative is, but I need a refresher on All Hands on Deck and Built for Zero and where we are with those. And so let's go through those 4 discussion topics and then just open it up.
Yeah, I'll try to bring us home on this. So policy discussion topics, whether or not we continue the encampment cleanups. I know after this last incident with the Kansas River, there were calls for stopping the cleanups. My recommendation is definitely that we continue to do them for the fact that they are public health and safety issues. Again, not that there's not concern for the individuals in those encampments. I think that what we've shared today is that there's a number of services that are provided to the individuals in the encampments ahead of time of the cleanup. So it's definitely something that we'll want to discuss. As mentioned, we shared how we support the warming centers. That's something else that has come up as of late as far as what the city and the county's role really should be in the warming centers. What we've heard is, should we consider Topeka First initiative? It's been brought up in the governing body with regards to other communities that if they establish that homeless individuals are not from the community, that they would find out where they were from and potentially bus them back to their community, understanding that they would have a support system set up before they were sent back. And then again, just to provide the higher policy discussion or policy topics that we'd love to discuss in the future. And with that, we'll stand for any other questions that you may have.
Great. Well, let's, if we can, committee, go back through these four for today, and any data, any pieces of the presentation that were provided to us, and at least throw out any questions or options that we'd like to see addressed when these issues are considered. Let's start with the encampments. We've talked about them some, or encampment cleanups, I should say. Any other comments on those? I do think I said earlier, if we had a little more information about, if you're able, it's hard to catch people once you've referred them on to a good spot, right? You don't always follow up with them after that. So, but if there is data, whether it's anecdotal stories or some hard data that you've been able to gather through the partners and the follow-up that they're doing in the rental housing, you know, what is a standard success ratio for how long somebody with an emergency transitional voucher stays? You know, it's likely pretty low. You know, how are we doing compared to those standards? And, you know, what are things that people have discovered and worked on, likely, that were weaknesses at first that we're doing better at now, and that people are more stable? You know, how's that network working? You know, one of the questions I've had, and it's come back to from way back when we did the camping ordinances, was, you know, why is there a reason for us to let the camps get that big and that overwhelmingly unsafe, rather than catch people much earlier and avoid just the growth and the size of what we've been dealing with? And maybe those are questions that you can already answer, but those. And City Manager, you said we didn't really include the CIT team and the behavioral health unit and a lot of our core staff that deal with these issues. Could you explain briefly why your thought is not to do that and just to focus on the dollars?
So when the request was made, I just didn't think that we had enough time to really pull all that data. I mean, it's something that we can certainly look at if we're planning for something next month or something. And so to try to pull everything else, like, it was going to be a really quick turnaround as to when this was requested.
Okay. I mean, for me, I know that we're doing a lot. And so when people say to us, you need to do something, again, that role that you mentioned, you know, which is our responsibility. And understand what our lane is, or whatever you'd want to call it, like you discussed so well. Okay. Anything else on this issue today? I know it's a lot of new information, so I'm sure if people have thoughts later, questions or thoughts, should those go to Carrie, to Rhiannon, to you, City Manager?
I would ask that Carrie and Rhiannon take the lead.
Pretty much went through that. That seems to be working okay.
I think it depends.
Who you ask.
Yes, and so again, we really just wanted to bring to this committee and to the governing body what we are doing, and basically let you weigh in on, should we be doing more?
Okay.
Should we be doing less? So yeah, so it's just again, there's been calls that the city and the county should be doing more. And so it's,
Right.
yeah.
Well, around this team then, are there any feedback pieces that you have to share with staff to make sure that, and city manager, to make sure they're aware of them, or comments or suggestions on this one? Okay.
My sense is they're doing enough. I know that there's been a lot of slamming in the media, which I think is, unfortunate, not by the media, but interviews that have happened. I think it's unfortunate. The city staff is being pulled in so many different directions with everything that you all are trying to do, with trying to get the affordable housing, with John and crew and all the other folks that are involved in cleaning up the encampments. Whereas, those that sometimes complain, they're looking at a very specific avenue that they are addressing. And so I don't think that there should be any concerns that you all have that you are not doing enough. Especially you do, because we know. And I think that if there would be a move by anyone in the governing body to say you should be doing more, it would be interesting to know why there is that belief, because anyone that's been following this for the past several years understands more and more how much our services are being utilized and our employees are being tapped into.
Well, and it is something, they're so complex. Each one of these pieces is complex, and the whole issue is complex. There is it's very elementary, I will say on my part, but a worksheet that Tara and I kind of worked out that we could use as a committee, or that the city as well, where we actually look at, okay, map out each issue. Is it a government responsibility, or is it a community responsibility? And then just in a very simple sense, map out what we see as our role, and who else the other partners are and what their roles are. And so if that can be helpful to us as committee members, or to the, I think it's now tacked on, the draft of that is tacked on at the back of this packet, but that could help us have a shared mapping of what we, after we've talked about it, and either confirm that we think what we're doing is just fine, or if there are some conversations to be had to clarify who the players are, or what the roles are, or where the money's going to come from, that we can do that and then have a shared document. Well, let's talk about Topeka first, because I didn't know what that meant. So thank you for that. Any feedback or thoughts for anything to put forth on that, or to check? Are other cities sending people home?
So I think what has been referenced is Douglas County and Lawrence. I believe that they're probably the closest example as far as taking that approach. So just, again, just something that we've heard some members of the governing body throw out. And so just, again, policy consideration.
Well, worth addressing. Some people think giving somebody a bus ticket is horrible, and others think it's the right thing to do. So, all right, well. And then city's participation in All Hands on Deck and Built for Zero. Where are we, with who are the groups that are working on this now, and where are we in terms of being able to pull something together?
Yeah, so I will, I'll address that and then let Carrie tell me where I've failed or I've misinformed. So I think the thing that is important to distinguish here is that All Hands on Deck is a community initiative with several different groups from different organizations. It has been made clear to us that it's not the city's initiative. We want to support it and help, and Carrie's as involved as she possibly can be with her 2 full-time jobs. And so where we're at with that is, we've had meetings, they're engaging with us. I think they're still navigating, still figuring things out. But they've got most of their seats filled. And if there's any specific updates you want to give, but at this point, I think that they've started meeting with council members, started meeting with staff, and I would believe that their intention is to schedule a time to come in front of the governing body and give an update and a presentation. So I would expect that in the near future. But yeah, that's good to distinguish the difference between that and Built for Zero, which is very much, in our case, a city-led initiative, but I will say it's statewide, right? We have to remember that the state of Kansas has been able to help support and adopt Built for Zero, which helps us with some of the software implementation that we need. They've helped with grants for the cost of that. And just as a reminder, in our case, the reason why the city is involved, that's not the case for all the other 4 COCs across the state, right? Because those COCs are individual operating organizations where our COC just happens to be housed within inside the city of Topeka. So when we go to this summit, we have a summit in mid-April? Yeah, mid-April. It'll be held here in Topeka, which is great. So all of the COCs are coming together, and they'll be Built for Zero individuals that are going to be coming. We've got 6 staff that'll be participating, and it'll be interesting to hear their perspectives, right? Because we're all City of Topeka employees, where they will be employees that work for different nonprofits, community organizations, not necessarily having a government. It would be important to wait till after that summit, because I hope to learn a lot that we can bring back and kind of give you a summary of how that went. And then just to leave this on the note of setting expectations, Housing Services, Carrie and her team, going through the Consolidated Action Plan update, it's vital, it's important. It represents a huge amount of our HUD funding that helps keep these programs going. So discussion on April 1st, action on April 8th. I would ask that this update to the governing body wait till after that, just because you're going to get a ton of information, and we really have to be, no pun intended, all hands on deck on getting that across the finish line so we meet the HUD deadline for submittal. And that's all.
I'll add with the Built for Zero, we are in that sort of messy stage where it seems like maybe not a lot is happening, but there is a lot of work going on. We received a grant from KDADS that allowed us to change our homeless management information system from our current system to, it's called Clarity. Clarity is the same system that all the other COCs use statewide. So as we also move to more state collaboration, it's just good to have the same system, to have consistency, to be collecting data in the same way. That's an intensive process. We're onboarding at the moment. Once the new system goes live, we will then double our efforts on the data collection. So this piece of it is long and slow, but work is being done.
I think that maybe you're skipping ahead a little bit on what maybe all the rest of us on the committee understand about Built for Zero. These that were involved in the homeless retreats, I'm using the wrong word, but when the silver consultant
needs and services.
Great, thank you for that refresher. And so then what you're saying is that our Built for Zero team is mostly city staff, but in the other cities around the state, it's more the continuum of care, that broad community collaboration.
That's correct.
At this point.
That's correct, yeah. We're unique that the
partners on board with Built for Zero. There will be outreach and case conferencing that will involve the community as well. Right now, we're just kind of still in the initial stages, so we aren't quite to that step.
Yes, yeah, that's probably more me, but
okay.
yes, yeah.
And so is there activity there that is included in what we're talking about, or are there other silos or other initiatives working?
Yes, I don't think I'd give you a comprehensive list of that right now. I would say for the purposes of the Momentum 2027 Housing Group, I tend to think that focuses more on housing as it relates to like a more traditional, affordable market rate, but like construction of housing, looking at the housing gap. So I kind of cover that, but more on the planning side, less of the housing services side.
Good. Do you have a question?
I'm just looking at the time.
Exactly. With that and with the timing that you're discussing and the things that we laid out here, this committee would normally meet on I think it's the 19th. The next monthly scheduled meeting would be the third Wednesday, which is the 16th of April. Would it be helpful to bring back updates and and so on those 4 topics and get them run by us, and given the timing, it sounds like you will have had those April events that you just talked about, and shoot for taking it to the council in May.
Yeah, the Built for Zero conference is it's the following week, the 24th or the 25th, but as it
Okay.
relates to some of the other updates, I'm sure that we can work to provide something.
Well, it would be most, as importantly, as if this kind of conversation that we had today can be helpful to be pulling it all together, in your opinion. I mean, would it be helpful to?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Are we talking more about the policy Built for Zero and all hands on deck? Or are you
we're
talking about
at this
the
point,
numbers?
wrapping it up,
Yeah.
and whether there is value in putting this array of topics and the 4 points on this agenda for us to work further with you in getting this material ready to take to council.
Yeah, I would defer to, if you would like to see it again, I think that's great. I think we understand the directive and we can follow up and ask questions if we need clarity, but I think we're good to understanding everybody's, got lots of presentations they're working on. I think we're good to take this, and if we get stuck, we'll definitely reach out, but if you want us to bring it back, we're happy to do that.
You're plenty busy, so we don't need to take time if it's not going to be helpful.
I would agree that we shouldn't take time for as busy as you are, and we don't need to have a meeting on this side just to have a meeting when you guys are so stretched. And I think you've heard what we've had to say. Thank you.
Okay, we'll let you know what questions that we have if we get stuck along the way or need clarification, and go from there.
Well, we're happy to help, or I am, but I think if there's a way that, again, we've got 4 people on the council here, a chance to chew a little longer and get something ready, if that can be helpful.
Appreciate that.
Anything else that anyone wanted to bring to the meeting today? If not, we're penciled in for monthly, since things are happening with changing our culture of property maintenance as well, so stay tuned. Thank you. We're adjourned.